Welcome back. I'm really excited to take you on this next step of the journey to authorship. Now, you already have chosen a non-fiction subgenre from the last module, and I hope that you've written it down on your mind map. This session is going to be dedicated to the structure and really investigating those powerful storytelling structures that best-selling authors turn to time and again to make sure that they're creating a beautiful reading experience for their ideal reader. Now, this is great news for you that you're taking the time to get this knowledge and get clear on what fits well with your style of story. Because the danger in not doing this is that I see so many aspiring authors just fill up their first drafts with so many different ideas and different ways of storytelling without providing a clear path for their reader. That's not going to be you. So I'm really excited to share with you what these 5 key storytelling components are. So the first storytelling structure, and the one that you would probably be the most familiar with, is known as the chronological structure. So there we go. Here's our ideal reader. You've already given yours a name, so you can insert your ideal reader on any of these timelines and know that this is their journey that you're taking them on. So for chronological, it really is about order of time. So it's a linear journey that you're taking your reader on from point A to point B. Now, if we're looking at an autobiography, this would be from birth up until where we are now. If we're looking at a memoir, this is the start of the challenge up until the evolution is complete. So because this style of structure is so well known, it's often the go-to for first-time authors simply because they don't know that there are other ways to approach the structure of their book. So this is a great starting base, but I'm going to show you some even better ways that you can structure your story to take it to the next level. So the second storytelling structure is known as the 3-part structure. As the name suggests, there's no mysteries here. It literally is dividing your story into 3 separate sections. Now, this can be a really powerful way to structure your book if there are very clearly defined evolutions for your character. So, for example, if we're looking at something like a health journey, part 1 could be your life before anything happened, leading up to the diagnosis. Part 2 would be dedicated to how you sort of manage that diagnosis and the journey that you went through to overcome the health battle. And part 3 would be getting the all clear and starting to rebuild your life and how it has shifted and changed from the person that the reader first met in part 1. So you can see it has very clear sections going forward and can be a beautiful storytelling structure that you can employ for autobiographies, memoirs, and narrative nonfiction styles. Now, the third storytelling structure, and by far my favorite, is what's known as the drop-in. So you can see our little ideal reader here has a parachute, and this is the timeline of the story. So when we look at this as chronological once again, from beginning of your journey to the end, this little guy can parachute onto any part of this timeline. So the key element of utilizing the drop-in as a strategy is that you can pick a really powerful, really emotive, really engaging part of your story. It has the power to really hook in your reader right from the get-go. So I liken it to, a good old slap in the face, because as soon as they open the page, they get that full experience, that connection, and an understanding of what the journey at large looks like. So this is a powerful tool that you can use for autobiography, memoir, and any narrative nonfiction styles. It can also be a powerful way to start an introduction for an academic or a collaborative style of book, but it's not so commonly used there because it's hard to build on the journey from that moment in those latter styles of books. Now, if you're really connected to this idea of the drop-in storytelling structure, it's important to take some time to reflect on what your story looks like and think about those pivotal moments that really help to shape your journey or the character's journey. Now, quite often you might see a reader being dropped in right here in the middle. Traditionally, this is where the biggest challenges are unfolding in the book. And so to drop the reader in right here, you're setting them down in the midst of all the action, and they can really feel the impact of that from the bat. Now, because we can't just continue forward, we need to give the reader some context of what it was that actually led you to that point. So what you would do then, in terms of your storytelling, is take the reader all the way back to the start and start the journey again chronologically. Now, this process will help your reader to understand fully all of the events that led up to that amazing drop-in point that you have selected for them. But the journey doesn't end there. You need to keep continuing all the way through to the completion of that journey so that they can see that full evolution of your character. Now, the drop-in point can literally be anywhere on this timeline, so it doesn't have to be the middle. I've seen really, really successful stories that have actually dropped readers in very, very close to the end, because quite often there's more than one challenge that we face in a lifetime. So there could be multiple potential drop-in points. Now, if this happens for you, don't stress. It's totally fine. What I would recommend for you to do is to take a chronological approach at the start. And as you are writing that first draft and you're getting even clearer on what sort of journey you're taking your reader on, those pivotal points, those potential drop-in points will jump off the page at you and you'll really feel connected to it. So don't worry if it doesn't happen for you straight away, because the process, the creative process of writing your book is going to unveil those for you. All right, the next storytelling structure is a little less common, but it is important to give you all of the options so that you can feel into what feels good for your book. And that is the parallel structure. So what this means is that you have your ideal reader in the middle, but there are two separate storylines unfolding. So you can see it is quite an uncommon sort of approach to take, especially if you're writing about your journey. But I have seen this done very effectively where books are co-authored. So for example, it was done beautifully by a mother and son combination where the son was incarcerated and put into jail. So he wrote about his experience. And the mother wrote about how she was able to process seeing her son going through that. So they had the same timeline so that their events could align, but their different viewpoints helped to really give the reader very different perspectives on the same events. So the hero's journey is the next storytelling structure, and you may be familiar with this as it's quite often referred to in movie circles in terms of script writing and development. And you'll find, quite interestingly, when you know this structure and you watch really popular movies such as Star Wars and The Wizard of Oz, that they actually follow this structure to the letter. Now, the hero's journey is something that has been circulating for many, many decades, and it comes in a lot of different formations, but the core principles remain the same, and those are what I'm going to share with you today. So this is what the hero's journey looks like. So we've got you here, the main character, and you're about to set off on an extraordinary journey. And the template follows 12 key points. Now, the first is right at the very start of the journey, and that's where you're anchored very much in your ordinary world, your normal way of being, and life is just carrying on. With the second point, that's where the call to adventure happens. Now, by that, that's almost like the tap on the shoulder that some kind of challenge lies ahead for you. The third point is the refusal of the call. So you're not actually ready to take on this challenge. So the fourth step in the hero's journey is linked to what's known as meeting the mentor. So finding someone or some kind of inspiration that helps to give you the strength to take on the challenge. The fifth step in the hero's journey is what's known as crossing the threshold. So as you can see here, this whole journey is separated from the ordinary world and the special world. So by crossing the threshold, you are essentially taking on the challenge and moving into the realm of the unknown. With the sixth point of the hero's journey, this is where the allies, the enemies, and all of the conflict starts to come to the fore, and the hero has to really learn who to trust going forward. Now, the seventh point of the hero's journey is what's known as the approach to the inmost cave. So it does have some very fancy language around it, but at its core, it doesn't have to be a physical place that the hero goes to, but more that this is the opportunity that they have to actually come face to face with that challenge for the first time. The eighth point of the hero's journey is known as the ordeal. And very literally, that's where the hero would step up and face either some sort of physical challenge or an inner battle that he or she needs to overcome in order to be successful in their journey. So from here, you can see that the hero is starting to rebuild themselves. And the next step, point 9, is known as the reward. So the hero has overcome that challenge and they now have some kind of power or wisdom that they can take forward in their journey. So as you know from watching any kind of movie, that it's usually not as cut and dry as one battle and one victory. So point 10 is known as the road back, and that is where the hero is challenged once again by some kind of thing, physical or internal, that stops them from venturing from that special world back into the ordinary world. So the next step in the hero's journey is what's known as the resurrection. My son would call it the boss battle. It's like the battle to end all battles, and the hero has to draw on everything that they have learned and experienced and accumulated in all of the other 10 points before this one. And then we come to the end of the hero's journey, which is actually named the return with the elixir. Very fantastical once again. But essentially it means that the hero has completed their journey and they move back into the ordinary world. However, as you can see from this graph, their new ordinary world is actually nothing like the world that they first started off in as you first met the character, because they have grown, they have been challenged, they have evolved, and they have taken on a whole pile of wisdom and knowledge as a result. So their new ordinary world is on a whole other level. They're an elevated person. Now, the hero's journey is an amazing structure for fictional stories, and it can work really well with nonfiction too. I just want to caution you that it may be a little bit difficult to fit a real life experience into the 12 beats that are required to successfully emulate the hero's journey. So you'll remember from module 2 when we talked about authenticity, and I shared Monica's story with you and her desire to create a story that would be befitting of a Hollywood blockbuster. Now, what Monica essentially was trying to do was make her lived experience fit into the structure of the hero's journey. And in her particular case, it didn't quite gel. It may work for you, or it may just simply serve as a bit of inspiration to show what's possible when you can follow a true evolution arc for your main character. Now, there is another way forward if you're looking to create a self-help, how-to, academic, or collaborative style of book, and that's what's known as a self-contained chapter. So as the name suggests, it really is about making sure that everything that the reader needs to know about a particular topic is included in each of the chapters. That way, each chapter has a beginning, middle, and end, and it's a nice, easy, self-contained way of approaching the storytelling and connecting with your reader. So now you're across all of the storytelling structures that the best in the business use to bring their books to life. So your next action step is to take a bit of time to really delve into which of those structures best aligns with your style of story. Now, it could be something you just like the sound of, something you think might be a little bit challenging, or you might stick with something like the chronological that makes the pathway clear and simple for you. There is no right or wrong, and know that when you sit down to start writing, you can absolutely switch as long as you're clear on the path that you're moving on to and you stay within that storytelling genre. The trouble I see with many authors who aren't clear and don't have this focus is that their stories ramble and weave and have no clear direction for their reader, and they end up putting down the book going, what just happened? So we don't want that for you at all. And that's not going to be you, because your activity for this module is to take the time to get clear on that structure You can recap on all of it in the workbook that's provided with this module. And when you're done, make sure that you add your chosen storytelling structure to your mind map so that you never forget the direction that you're taking your reader on. I'm so excited that we're well over halfway in this Ignite and Write workshop, and I look forward to seeing you at the next module.